So here we have the browser. We do not have to click anything. And after the period passes, we can see that the page is redirected somewhere else, but still, the URL didn't change. And this is the functionality of iframe that we discussed a little bit earlier. So we load another page within the page that the victim has already visited. If we go to the attacker PC right now and load the RAD deployment method, I would say, let's see, ενδεχομένως. Sorry for this interruption. Something's not going very good with it. It's quite difficult now. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I think we got it. Yeah. Okay. So we gain access to the console window. I'll try to open it a bit more here. Here we can see that the browser actually connected back to the attacker on port 8080 that the exploitation was running on, and was able to open a direct session to the victim after the redirection of the browser. So we can see that the session was created, and we will attempt to access this session. Okay, and right now we have gained access on the remote shell of the victim host. We can browse through the processes that are running on the victim host machine, and we even can get a screenshot from this victim. And this is a screenshot. So let's do another example. There we have it. So right now we have gained remote command execution on the victim in a matter of few clicks, few minutes, I would say. And we can take screenshots of the victim machine, turn on keylogger, so whatever the victim types in his workstation, in a browser, on Notepad, in every application, we will read the buffer, the keyboard buffer, and we will bring it back to the attacker. So whatever the victim host accesses, we can access it too. Apart from this, we can another functionality that we have through browser hooking, except from redirecting the browser to whatever we like, is the ability to execute raw JavaScript. So we can direct any JavaScript code to run instantly on the victim. And you know that the JavaScript capabilities are enormous right now. We can even execute applications that reside and are installed on the victim workstation. And sky's the limit, of course. If any one of you is familiar with JavaScript or is a programmer, he can understand the abilities that we have right now. So this technique, this demonstration showed two things. First of all, that we can instantly hook the browser. We can get instantly information about the victim. And afterwards, we can use it as a method to deploy our malicious shell code or executable files.
And of course, consistency.
Yes. Since we are able to hook once the browser, we can run through multiple ways. We can raise our level of persistency. And this goes to the remote access Trojans. Once they are installed on the victim host, we can migrate the malicious shellcode process to a legitimate process like Explorer.exe or Internet Explorer.exe. So it's completely stealth. The user cannot tell if there is a non-legitimate program running on his machine. And it is very difficult to get rid of it, of course.
And of course, propagate.
So if you have any questions, yes.
Okay. In the initial hook that you got on the browser, is that a browser-specific vulnerability or is it global?
Very good point. No, it's not a specific browser vulnerability. And what is actually is JavaScript. So the only thing we execute on the client part in order to achieve this hooking is a very small, lightweight JavaScript containing legitimate actions. And this is very interesting to know, because having executed a legitimate actions, meaning the actions that are not detected by any security vendor or antivirus as harmful, we cannot detect it or protect with it. Yes. Yes.
First question is, what is the version of Internet browser that you are using?
Right now, on our demonstration, we are using Internet Browser 6, but I can reassure you that in a fully updated and patched station having Windows 7 and the latest version of Internet Explorer, this technique is 100% successful, because as we said before, the only thing we do against this victim is legitimate commands through JavaScript.
Just to clear things up, we mean about the hooking.
Yes.
The hooking. The exploitation of the browser to execute commands, that's a vulnerability of the browser. But the
In our demonstration, of course.
So actually there is a two-step process.
Yes.
Right. So first we hook the browser and the second we exploit the
Correct.
So if the victim runs the latest version of the browser without any known exploits, then you cannot exploit it.
You cannot exploit, but you can hook.
Exactly. And
But hooking is not new. If you go to Facebook, for example, your browser already runs JavaScript, but it's limited. It cannot read the files on your hard drive, for example. So
yes, your discussion now for the second part of the exercise, which can be done through multiple ways. We can search around having primarily the knowledge, the workstation operating system, the browser version and stuff, so we can research about non-vulnerabilities. We can deploy shell code that is encoded with the methods that we discussed a little bit earlier, so we are undetected by antivirus software. There are numerous techniques that we can achieve part 2. But of course, the whole remote access Trojan installation execution is having the shellcode, the malicious shell code, run, of course, on the victim workstation.
so if hooking is not new, if you go to Facebook, for example, if your browser already runs JavaScript, but it's limited, it cannot read the files on your hard drive, for example. So
Yes. Yes, but the thing here is that until you do this, it is very hard to know if the victim will be affected or is affected by this vulnerability. It's like sending something to the unknown. So, yes.
The web filtering, protection, anti-mail, anti-spyware protection, everything, they might block the URL.
Of course.
They are scanning every email, they are scanning everything, it exists.
We'll discuss a little bit later about the protection, so we'll refer to it a little bit more. Another question. Yes.
If the victim uses the browser before you run some attack on before you put malicious, before you exploit him, you lose complete.
Yes. When the browser session closes, right now we have a session termination. However, once the browser is hooked, we can run several methods like creating a new small persistent window on the victim so we can hold on the hooking technique, or manipulate or send him to YouTube, let's say, and play a ring role so the user might think that a video is trying to load. So we can grab him at this point for some time in order to perform further attacks.
But the JavaScript in the browser hooking is just acting server side. It gets only the user agent information, so you can exploit it.
Yes.
And the next thing, of course, since you have the user PC and you have an iframe on it and you can redirect to whichever site you want, you can run automatic many exploits. We just run one exploit, so you can run automatic a number of exploits.
About the iPhone, it is a different way to. You have if you do the browser hooking on iPhone, you have complete access.
Yes.
Like iPhone, we can even attempt to call through the Skype, because the Skype is an add-on on the browser, so we can attempt to call through the victim's Skype account. Anyway, since we are running a little bit out of time, we will be available after this session. So if you have any further questions regarding this process, the demonstration, and the rest, we would definitely like to hear about this. Okay. So let's move on to the presentation part. So, having discussed, so here we are listing few tricks that we can do after having hooked the browser. It's the same that we have discussed during the demonstration. Let's move on. And we'll leave it here. Okay. And let's now move to the protection. Of course, protections for remote access Trojans is not a single way to go. It's not something that we implement the technology and we are automatically protected by remote access Trojan deployment, execution, operation. This is actually a series of methods and mechanisms that need to put in place on our organization. We can start with, of course, the security hardening actions. Through this methodology, or I would say during this methodology, the best practices are usually cutting down unnecessary services on the host, while creating a proper security policy to protect the rest of the services that need actually to run on the host, so the system and the applications hosted can be run. Another thing is the operating system and application patching. Many researchers and the vendors itself discover a whole new vulnerabilities every day. So it's very critical to install the provided patches, hot fixes, or even workarounds, and mitigate those vulnerabilities. Another thing is the user host, the endpoint protection. When we are discussing about endpoint, we're meaning the workstation, the server, and even the mobile devices. So it is very critical to run a proper antivirus and anti-spyware software on these devices. Of course, we have, when we are talking about endpoint protection, we do not mean only antivirus. We also need to think about a proper firewall running on the host level, and intrusion detection and intrusion prevention software, because running those protection mechanisms at host level, we have better protection against propagating such kind of malicious software. The other thing is firewall technologies, of course. When we're starting implementing a firewall technology, of course, the best way is to go with a negative security model approach. This security model dictates allowing only the services that need to run while dropping all the rest. And with this configuration, we need to restrict the inbound and, of course, the outbound traffic. So the remote access Trojans won't be able to access ports that normally shouldn't be allowed on the internet. A good example is that the corporate workstation have access only to port 80, let's say, port 443, and not port 88. That, like our demonstration today, the whole exploitation was done through port 88. Another mechanism that we need to put in place is the intrusion detection and prevention. Having a well-configured intrusion detection and prevention, we protect our corporate systems and devices through signature-based or behavioral analysis from attacks which are known on the wild, or even zero-day attacks. In the series of mechanisms, of course, we cannot miss the web application and database firewall. The main difference of this security equipment from a normal firewall is that it targets, or I would say it protects the application level. Those devices, those security devices are capable of reading, learning the applications, and getting knowledge on the request, the input of the user that is done towards this application. So if we have a system like this running in front of a web application server, which is connected to a database system, we start learning with these systems the application behavior, and we can record down the legitimate requests done by legitimate users. That way, we can protect the application servers and the database servers from the non-legitimate traffic. And at that point, I would like to mention a few investigations that we were assigned. and we have seen many remote access Trojans being deployed to database servers through normal SQL injection. And this is the reason we need, of course, the database firewall. And also, we have seen the deployment of remote access Trojans on front-end web application servers. In that case, we have seen the remote access Trojan running on the web server. The web server served the web traffic of the website that was hosted on the server normally. No one could see any, let's say, activities, malware activities, but still, the attacker could access the remote access Trojan through specific URL on this web server. So it's very risky. You can continue if you like. Oh, we can say.
Okay. Mail relay. As we said earlier, many.
Okay.
Again. All right. Mail relay, as we said earlier, many viruses, Trojan worms are propagated via email. So you need a proper mail relay configured that will clean up an email before entering the organization and reach the user. So basically, you need to have a mail relay that will not only be based on signatures on known viruses, also be doing heuristic analysis. WebSSL VPN. Many organizations have users working abroad, from home, from other workstations. You need to provide them a solution where the employee will be able to log in from its home computer, run some checks on that computer, make it comply to the organization security policy, and then giving it access to the rest of the organization corporate network. All these devices, security devices that we have discussed, have no use if you don't monitor them. You need to have proper security log monitoring, review their statistics, errors, attacks, see their status, and be able to take action on that. This can be done by a team on your organization, which should be trained to the latest threats, meaning that this should be done in-source, or hire a specialized team to do this outsource. The difference between the two is that if you have your own team, you need to train them. You need to have the systems to collect logs from all these devices and be able to generate alerts, correlate all these statistics. Last but not least, of course, is the user. Definitely, organizations need a user awareness program. We consider the user to be the weakest link on this security chain. So security educational sessions should be regularly offered to the employees to teach them how to use the security of the corporation to protect their passwords, sensitive information, corporate information, and of course protect from social engineering, which is nowadays a critical threat. So, any questions for us? Mike.
First of all, is this relevant to a specific OS, client OS specifically, like Windows, Windows XP?
You mean the part with the demonstration or the remote access?
In general, let's for several Linux distributions, are RAT or remote access programs also relevant to Linux distributions? Because I don't know too many of them. I know some of them, but I think the percentages are different usually between Mac OS, Windows, and Linux distributions.
Of course, remote access Trojans can be crafted to be deployed and operate over various have vulnerabilities on all these operating systems and applications, we can definitely push any shellcode we need on this by exploiting the vulnerabilities or writing code for them.
Okay. Is there any percentage? What operating system is more secure than the other?
I wouldn't.
There have been some statistics.
Yeah,
But
there are of course statistics, but in an attacker perspective, we wouldn't care, let's say, about statistics because the vulnerability may be discovered from the time that a malicious user, an attacker, cares to research.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. The second question is about how does all these countermeasures that you've mentioned attack from like hooking? Because it might be legitimate for a website when you when you set this up, so no antivirus vendors would have this information that this is a legitimate website. How can you protect from that? And apart from that, all these actions that you carried out were illegitimate actions or were legal actions. So no antivirus or even in the security log you will find it was an error or it was a possible attack.
So the right answer to this is that the whole procedure that we demonstrated is a two-part process. First one is the hooking of the browser, and the second part is deploying a malicious shellcode, which will be our actual remote access Trojan.
I'm only asking about the first part.
The first part, honestly, up to now, I don't think that there is a good measure. I would say that it's quite undetectable. But, of course, as you may have seen, it is also limited. In the future, this is why we discussed about the promising part, there might be exploits that could be run through this legitimate way. We'll see. But since it's a two-part process, the rest of the process, meaning the deployment of the shellcode, can be protected from all these series of protection measures. It depends, of course, of the technique that is being used by the attacker. It's very different from environment and from host to host. This is the reason we showed you today the series of methodology. We cannot take only one mechanism or security approach to mitigate this risk. We need to have the whole series.
Okay, from an end user perspective, how can you detect it? How can you make sure that my or someone else's computer, endpoint computer, is infected?
The way to do this is from research. There are specialized teams that we can assign them, and we also do this.
you can also check out. Yeah, you can. Sorry, you please. You can also check out the email, see the URL that is linking to, see if it's malicious. You know that everybody knows it, that there is 100% security. You don't know what's going on. You're just taking all these measures to minimize the risk.
Okay, one more question from somebody else, and then we should be moving.
We continue, sir.
For example, if I was using Firefox, there is no script, like, would you be able to do that?
If we're talking about the part of hooking the browser,
Yes.
if JavaScript is not running, no, it won't work.
It will be detected.
It won't
It will
work.
be detected because I have probably done some scripts trying to run on my browser.
No. The whole hooking process does not rely on the security level implemented on the browser.
If I understood correctly before, you redirected the browser
Yeah.
to an
Yeah.
that run a script,
Yes.
a JavaScript.
Yeah.
So if I was using no script, like even Firefox, will show me that this script
wants to run.
Oh, I see your point. If the browser does not support, completely does not support JavaScript.
No script, disables all scripts running on the browser.
Exactly.
Unless you allow it.
Exactly. At that point, since we are triggering using JavaScript, if the browser is not capable to run any JavaScript at all, it's completely disabled, as you mentioned, then this method won't work. But you can understand that JavaScript is widely used. It's used also on mobile devices, and it's very risky because those mobile devices do not have yet a lot of protection, or the user does not care to implement any protection. And of course, all the rest browsers, Chrome, Firefox, any version of it, support JavaScript.
Okay, thank you, Andres and Les.
All right. Thank you too.
Last but not least, we have here with us Mr. Dimitris Papapetrou, who will demonstrate hackers in action. How they think, the methods and techniques they utilize to break into remote systems, and then
Go for it.
Dimitris will probably not demonstrate how
Next year,
plug your poster, but nevertheless, I'm sure you will agree with me in an hour's time that this demonstration was quite interesting.
Ah, sorry.
Dimitris is an information security professional with 14 years of experience in information security.
Δημήτρη,
And risk
θέλεις να βάλεις τη σειρά για να σε γράφω στην
He has
κάμερα.
acted as a project leader or key specialist for a number of projects
Να μας
at major corporations both in Cyprus and abroad. He's an active member of the information security community performing research work in the domains of network security, web application security, and social engineering, and has contributed a real-life scenario of firewall subversion in Corton, Theodore Lyons' book, Nmap Security Scanning.
Όχι, τώρα, δεν.